Hey guys, welcome back to Willis Outdoor Adventures podcast. This is Tim, and I'm here with Mary Beth.
Hey guys.
So today we're going to be talking about a big van trip that we took out west. We went all the way to Washington, and we were out there for somewhere between 3 weeks and a month. It was a lot of fun, but we're going to kind of overview what we're going to talk about for you so you know where we're going to go in this podcast. Basically, we're going to tell you the backstory of how we got the van and what the van is and what it looks like. Then we're going to go through a general itinerary of our trip and the stops that we made along the way. We ended up going to 7 national parks. And then we'll just tell some highlights and some stories. And then at the end, we'll even share some travel tips for cheap travel and cheap van living if you have it. We're excited about that. And then, we'll see what happens. So, the van backstory, do you want to share part of that story? Or
I can share a little bit. So, basically, as you guys probably already know, Tim and I have a big love for traveling together and just experiencing new places and new things together. So, we kind of always talked about, it'd be so cool to, get a van and basically have a bed so we didn't have to, always buy hotels or whatever. Do you want to share where we got it? So, we'd always kind of dreamed about finding a van, and we started looking. And
for me, I think it was this thing where I was, when I was single and maybe hanging out with Caleb or whoever, or by myself, I would just bomb out to Colorado and I would just sleep in the front seat of my car.
Or, hold on, let me clarify. Or he would literally just take a tarp, set it down somewhere in the middle of the woods with his sleeping bag and sleep there.
So, all that to say, I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to that stuff, so I never thought about this. Mary Beth's also very low maintenance, but maybe not quite as...
Maybe not quite that low.
So, once we got married, we both knew we liked to travel, but we didn't want to spend tons of money on hotels and Airbnbs and stuff, so we started thinking about getting something we could sleep in the back of.
And it sounded pretty cool just to be able to say, hey, let's go somewhere, and all you had to do is pretty much get in your car with your stuff, and you knew you had a bed and a place to stay.
So I started looking around for some vans, some smaller vans, and I mentioned to Andrew, my brother-in-law, that I was looking into them, and he said, well, my dad has one, and he's already put a bed in the back of it, and he'd probably sell it to you. So sure enough, I reached out to him, and we went and looked at it, and he sold it to us for a really nice price, and I think he gave us a good deal, which was nice of him.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And so we got a van, and it already had a bed back there. We just bought a mattress, like a trifold mattress off Amazon, and we were set pretty much. Do you want to describe the van a little bit?
So it's...
Well, it's a I'll say
what it was. Ford Transit. Ford Transit Connect 2011.
Yeah, good job. Wow. It was, Andrew's dad used it as a work van, for several years, and then it was kind of retired, but he was going to turn it into like a fishing van, kind of an adventure van, same idea. But he put a bed back there. He, made this like slide out bed, and it was a full bed, so decent size. And, that's basically all there was to it.
Yeah. Like we said, we're not too fancy. So pretty much all we have back there is a bed. And then, we, got a mattress, and then we put up like curtains, but that's pretty much it.
Yep. And there is like an area for you to slide like luggage underneath the bed too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So this was not our first trip with the van. It was maybe our I don't know, fourth, third.
Oh yeah.
We'd gone on a few, but it was our longest. So that's kind of how we got the van. And then, do you have anything else to say about the van?
I don't think so.
Okay. So now we'll tell you like a general overview of the itinerary. We decided we wanted to go to Washington, because we knew we loved the Pacific Northwest, but neither of us had ever explored Washington before at all.
And I remember being in high school and one day seeing pictures of I think it was actually Mount Rainier or Olympic National Park, and I was like, I want to go there someday. So when we started talking about a van trip, I pretty much automatically was like, do you want to go to Washington? Even though it's like the farthest state. Yeah,
so that was our final destination, was kind of those national parks there that are in Washington, particularly like Rainier and Olympic. But the thing was, it's, well over 2,000-mile drive and was going to be like 37 hours. So we knew that we couldn't do that like we normally do all in one push. We'd have to break up the trip a little bit. So our very first stop was only 10 hours in. We stopped in South Dakota and spent the night with my cousin and Mary Beth's good friend, Anna.
Which that was really fun, but also like a quick funny story. I somehow forgot to bring any type of jacket. I think besides my rain jacket, which was really light. And, you know, of course, we're going to like Washington and these places that are probably a little cooler. So thankfully, Anna gave me a jacket that I used literally the whole trip. So that was a lifesaver.
Yeah, so then from South Dakota, we went on and we spent a day and a half in Yellowstone. And that was, we actually hadn't had that planned, but it just helped break up the trip a little bit more. Then we headed on the final push to Washington, and our first stop there was North Cascades National Park, which was kind of a favorite. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Then from there, we went on our backpacking segment of the trip, which was in the Hoh Rainforest and Olympic National Park. And then we headed on to Rainier National Park and spent a day or two there. Then, sadly, we left Washington, but we had to drive through Utah, I believe. So we made a couple stops there. We spent just one day at Arches and then briefly went to Canyonlands as well.
And one thing that I really enjoy was like, honestly, none of this was really planned besides Washington, but it made for such a fun trip because as along the way, it was like, oh, we're close to this national park. Do you want to stop? And I think it made for like such a memorable trip.
One of the things that was planned, though, was we were going to end up in Colorado and link up with my family there. So then we buzzed to Colorado. We actually spent a day or two there by ourselves near Aspen and then headed on to Estes Park to meet up with my family for a few days of a little bit chiller vacation. We had a cabin rented there, which was super nice.
Nice way to end our trip.
And from there,
showers. No.
Yeah. And from there, we headed home. So that was kind of the general itinerary. Some of it was planned, some of it was not. But we wanted to share some highlights and stuff and stories from maybe each location. So other than spending some good time with Anna and hanging out with her and her boyfriend at the time, Ferguson, South Dakota was basically our first stop to see them. And we slept there and we headed on, made a last minute decision to go to Yellowstone. And if you guys haven't been to Yellowstone, you should. It's very touristy, but it's such a unique landscape. It's beautiful and there's wildlife everywhere. So we just kind of explored some of the touristy things there. We saw Old Faithful, and I don't know what it's called, but the big colorful eye thing, like pond thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did
Everything smells like sulfur.
And we did do one hike there, and it might have been the high point of Yellowstone. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a mountain or something.
Yeah, like a pretty tame mountain, but it was like a decent hike that not every tourist does. And we spent the night there.
Yeah, so not much. I mean, Yellowstone was cool, not much to say about it. But one thing I wanted to say is as we were leaving Yellowstone, this was really cool. Basically, we were getting gas, and it was probably 5 p.m.? I don't know. Yeah. We were headed on our way to continue on toward Washington, and as we were pumping gas, I look over and see this group playing volleyball, and I love volleyball. And I was like, do you think it'd be weird if we went and asked them if we could join them? So we kind of contemplated it for a while, probably 30 minutes. So then finally we decided to go over and ask him.
Mustered up the courage, really.
And it was really cool. They were super welcoming, and we ended up playing pretty fun volleyball for I don't know, an hour and a half with these random people. And come to find out, such a small world. One of the girls actually was from Columbia, Missouri, which is where we're from. So it was just cool, to see how small the world was, and also a highlight.
Yeah, that was fun. And it was cool because you wanted to play volleyball and we were able to link up with some random people and do that. And actually, we did it later in the trip as well with some others. But we'll get to that. So yeah, Yellowstone was just a fun landscape and we headed on our way. I think we were both pretty excited to get to our final destination, but it did help breaking up the trip like that and just not having to be on the road so much. But honestly, the van's pretty nice because if you're driving, I can lay in the back and sleep and vice versa.
Yeah.
Usually vice versa.
What does that mean?
That means usually I'm driving.
No.
But anyway, yes.
I helped.
No, you do help a lot. I could not do that by myself. But anyway, we headed on and we were getting pretty close to North Cascades National Park on our drive. And the scenery just started to get so pretty.
Oh my gosh.
You remember that town that we went through that you were in love with?
Yeah.
I was
in love with everything.
There was a little mountain town that we kind of drove through and Mary Beth was just
can we move here?
Yeah. And it really is just beautiful scenery. There's something special about the Rockies that far north, I think.
I haven't been to that many. Well, I've been to a decent amount of national parks, not a ton, but that has been my all-time favorite national park I've ever been to. And it's really funny because we honestly, the main places we were going to go was like Mount Rainier and Olympic. And we were just like, oh, we'll just go to North Cascades because, you know, it's up there too. And we're probably never going to go back to Washington soon. But it ended up being my absolute favorite. It's so gorgeous, and you have to go if you've never been.
Yeah, so we pulled in, and right away we saw that lake. It's like Diablo Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got that rich blue color that you see in like the Canadian Rockies and kind of up north. And it's just like when you're looking at it, it looks like in the pictures, and you're just like, man, this can't even be real.
Yeah.
And the sun was setting, and the clouds were pink, and everything was just gorgeous.
Had like our first like official I don't know, just like our big stop, and so we like had soup by the lake while the sun was setting, and it was just, it was amazing.
Ironically, though, on this whole trip, I think North Cascades was both of our favorites, but we only spent like a day and a half there.
Yeah, we so regret it because we didn't, like we said, we didn't know that it was going to be that beautiful, and so we had kind of already planned a lot of other things in the other national parks. But we loved it so much that the whole trip we were like, should we drive back to North Cascades? Like, should we just go back and like spend more time there? We never ended up doing that, but that's how amazing it was.
We almost did after Rainier, though. We were like 4.5 hours from there, and we're like, should we just buzz back and spend one more day there? But we didn't. But yeah, it was gorgeous. We ended up doing a hike there the next day, and then kind of talked about it. We're like, let's head on our way. And so we headed on our way to Olympic.
Wait, I gotta...
Oh, sorry. Are we not
Tell more
done?
about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that hike.
Okay.
Good job.
Sorry, there's like two. This is like probably the ultimate highlight of the whole trip for me.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
It was this incredible hike called Cascade Pass, and how do you say it?
Van Trump.
No.
Oh.
This.
Oh. Salhale.
Cascade Pass and Sahale Arm or something.
Yeah, Sahale.
But it's basically a glacier, and it's still my hike. But basically, yeah, amazing hike. We got up there to like this pass, and long story short, it was actually super foggy. So we were like sat down after like, you know, going to the pass, and we're like, should we just turn around? Because we'd already been hiking for what, like 2 hours?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And it was like at that point, like I think 11 or 12 in the afternoon, or, you know, late morning. And we were like, I don't think it's going to clear up. So like, should we just turn around? But basically we decided to keep going, and I'm so happy because when we finally got up to the glacier, it cleared up, and like I said, I've never been on a hike so beautiful. It was just incredible, the views. There was mountain goats everywhere, and there's just something so special about those mountains. It's like they just look so rugged with the snow, but then at the same time there's like this lush grass everywhere. Yeah, I don't know, it was just incredible. So that was like my highlight of the whole trip, probably.
It actually was gorgeous. And the cool thing is, you know, we didn't know if it was going to clear at all that day, all that fog, really heavy fog in the morning and even into like lunchtime. But
don't turn around.
Well, we honestly did. We stopped and we kind of ate lunch earlier than we normally would have. And we actually kind of prayed. We were like, God, it would be really cool if it just clears up and we could see the views. And he did.
Yeah, I forgot about
it was
that, yeah.
super gorgeous. And
amazing.
I think something about like when it's foggy and the clouds start breaking, like that lighting makes everything
so
extra pretty.
insane.
So.
And can I say one more story?
Oh, please.
One more hike we did there too in Cascades was Thornton Lake. And this is just a funny story from the trip. But basically, before we left, like the whole time, I was like, should we get bear spray, Tim? You know, because we're going to like Washington, and I don't know, like what if we're going to see a bear? And the whole time he was like, no, like we don't need bear spray. We'll be okay. He's like, it'll be fine. Well, then it's so funny because like the first hike we did in North Cascades, we're like pretty much we've seen like one other person on this trail, and we're like walking, and I look up, and I don't know how far in front, not very far.
I mean, 25 yards maybe.
25 yards. I look up, and there's a bear. And I mean, thankfully it was a black bear, but I like kind of freaked out, and I like, no, we didn't even see it because we were talking. So I like nudged him, and I was like, there's a bear. And yeah, thankfully nothing happened, but just want to say I was right.
Well, but you know, are we here to talk about it?
But could have been worse. I don't know.
But
thankfully the bear just like, Tim kind of like, you know, was loud, and he kind of just ran off. But I was like, oh my gosh, there was a bear.
It was fun. It was actually fun to see him though, him or her. We just kind of ran into it and said, hey, bear. And I got a quick little video of it as it was walking away, but seemed pretty uninterested in us.
I don't know. I would, yeah.
But Thornton Lake, thanks for helping me slow down, because I was thinking Thornton Lake was not in Cascades, but Thornton Lake was another absolute gorgeous hike. I would say.
Sorry, go ahead.
Much of the hike was like through the woods and stuff and not like that spectacular, but the actual lake when you got there, it's like you gain this ridge, and then you drop down from the ridge to the lake. So you're like above the lake looking down at it. and it was just unreal. Like,
I mean, it looked fake. Like, that's how beautiful the picture was. Like, if you just look it up on the internet, all these hikes, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I think one of our other favorite things about North Cascades, too, is although it is a national park, it has a lower budget than a lot of national parks, so less amenities. But that also means less tourists.
Yes.
So there was a lot less people there than a lot of the other national parks. That's what's hard is, like, some of these places are so beautiful, but it's hard, you know, when you're trying to enjoy the solitude and nature in national parks because they're a lot of times slammed with tourists. North Cascades did have a lot of tourists, but less than some. I mean,
like, compared to all the other ones we went to, it was so, like, less people. And it was just, so if you're looking for a beautiful place with not many people, go there.
So, ironically, then we went from there to
Olympic
in the Hoh Rainforest, and that's where we did like a 3-day backpacking trip, which was a lot of fun. Do you have anything to say about that?
Not really, besides it was my first ever backpacking trip, so that was pretty cool for me. It wasn't like super intense or anything, but I've always wanted to try backpacking, so we did like a 34-mile hike over 3 days, so pretty tame. But yeah, we just like hiked in with all our gear, camped, and then hiked up to this beautiful glacier, and
and it was like the rainforest is like a really unique, I guess, biome almost, or like the views are really unique and all the ferns and moss and stuff. So that was super cool and unique to be able to see. But there was actually a lot of people on the trail, which was kind of funny because it's like you're backpacking, so you kind of think you're going to get out in the wilderness and away from people.
Also,
but there's a lot of other backpackers.
Like something about us starting the trip at our favorite national park. Like I feel like the rest of the trip we're like, this doesn't really compare to North Cascades though. So it was kind of hard. Like even though everything was absolutely gorgeous, I think we just loved North Cascades so much that it seemed like nothing could compare. But it was amazing, the backpacking trip, and it was only 3 days, but I remember feeling and smelling so bad. So yeah, we were like, we got to find a shower now.
So yeah, and throughout the trip, and we'll talk about this towards the end of the podcast, but we had what we called town days. And this is where we like would go to town and kind of get refreshed, take showers, maybe play some disc golf. But we'll talk about that later. Right now we're kind of running through the highs of like the itinerary part of the trip where we were in like the parks and stuff. So after this, we went to Rainier National Park. And some of the views in Rainier, I would say, are a little bit more like mountainous and similar to North Cascades. Yeah. And it's honestly like incredibly gorgeous, but there was a lot of tourists there, so it was very hard to get away from the crowds. But we did some hikes there too. We actually did one in particular that was extremely pretty. It
was called Mount Van Trump Peak, and I loved it because it like kind of encompassed a lot, like everything I guess that Mount Rainier has. But like you start off in this beautiful forest, and then you get to this gorgeous huge waterfall, and then you end at like basically this beautiful mountain view. And that actually ended up getting way less crowded too. So it was a beautiful hike and definitely a highlight. And actually we recorded my first podcast on here up there.
Oh yeah. I should look up what the episode number is, but the episode number about hitting a bunch of states in our first 2 years of marriage. We recorded that up there on that hike. So.
That was memorable, but yeah.
That was fun.
So yeah, Mount Rainier, that's kind of the highlight. But it was really, really beautiful.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Mount Rainier is that basically wherever you are in the park, at some point you're going to have a view of just this huge hunk of a mountain that is Mount Rainier. And I've told Mary Beth this before, but something about that mountain, it just taunts you. And it's so huge and ominous. And it's just, I've never seen a mountain so much. That one in Mount Adams that just kind of taunt you and say, like, I'm right here, like, come and get me. They're just big. And boy, they talk some smack just by the way they look. It's kind of cool. I mean, they're beautiful. Yeah. So someday, that one's on the bucket list. If Mary Beth lets me. But yeah, Rainier was awesome and beautiful. Any highlights in Rainier?
I think pretty much Mount Van Trump.
And there was waterfalls on that hike too.
Oh yeah, there was,
which was cool.
Yeah.
Gorgeous waterfalls.
Yeah, but I just love Washington because it kind of encompasses everything, like the beach, which we didn't mention we went there too, but in Olympic there's like the beautiful beach, then there's the beautiful rainforest, then there's the mountains. So you got to go there someday, but we should probably move on to Utah maybe.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wait, I want to tell one more story. Sorry.
Oh no, please.
So really quick, as we were leaving Washington, actually I think this was the day we left our 3-day backpacking trip. So on the way to Mount Rainier, we decided we had to find a shower because we were so gross. And so we ended up driving to like the closest big town that had a Planet Fitness, which we'll talk more about that. But we basically that's how we take showers, is Planet Fitness. So we ended up going to Olympic, the city of Olympic, which is that the capital? I don't know.
You put me on the spot.
Gosh, now I feel dumb. Okay, anyways, we drove to Olympic, Washington, and basically we like took showers, and then I was like back in the car, like, you know, fixing stuff as Tim was in Planet Fitness. And this random lady came up to me and she's like, "Excuse me, are you like a vanner or something?"
A van lifer, maybe?
Yeah, and she's like, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, "Okay, I am too. Like, it's so nice to meet you." I'm like, this is weird. And then she proceeds to say, "So, do you have a place to like sleep tonight?" And I'm thinking like, yeah, like what is this lady trying to do? And I'm like, yeah, like we'll find a place. And she's like, "Okay, well, it's kind of like dangerous here, so if you need a place to stay, like just please like feel free to get my number and you guys can come stay like on my property," which was like super nice. But also I was kind of like, I have no clue who you are, so I just kind of said thank you. And anyways, then I was like, is it really that sketchy here? So I told Tim, and we're like, oh, it's probably fine. So we proceeded to go into town to get a nice meal after a backpacking trip, and basically come to find out the city was pretty sketch, and we ended up having to drive outside of the city to sleep because it was like actually pretty dangerous. So that was just like one kind of, I don't know, funny story. Not really funny, but interesting.
Yeah, no, and it was super nice of her to offer. And after getting to see a little bit more of Olympic, I understand why she offered, because there was just, maybe a lot of substance abuse in that town, and just some people that were down on their luck, and it would have been a easy place to get into some trouble, I think. I actually have a story too from Washington before we move on. You remember we
love Washington.
We went and we decided we were going to go check out Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
So one day we drove maybe 45 minutes out of our way to go to Seattle, and we were going to check out the Pike Market and everything.
Oh.
And so as we're pulling into this massive city, there's just traffic and people everywhere and funny smells. And we find a parking spot finally, and we like get out of the van and we look at each other and we're like, "Do you really want to do this?" And we both were like, "No." So we got back in the van and just went on our way because we're just not city people. So that was kind of a funny story. But yeah, so from there we went to Utah and went to another very unique biome or landscape in Arches National Park.
Mm-hmm. We actually were not in Utah very long. Like we said, it wasn't planned to do this, so we kind of just were driving through. So we ended up actually sleeping in Arches National Park, and then woke up the next morning and did the quick
Delicate Arch.
Yeah, the quick Delicate Arch hike. And then we pretty much were only there for like a half a day, and then we just went ahead and drove over to Canyonlands just to look at it on our way out. But one thing I remember is the stars that night, and Arches was incredible. Mm-hmm. And we haven't told this yet, but one of our favorite like snacks of the whole van trip, you want to tell them?
No, you go for it.
Was kind of weird, but seaweed and wrapped in sardines, sardines wrapped in seaweed. And I just remember us like getting out of the van, looking at the stars while we were eating our sardines wrapped in seaweed.
Okay, that sounds really gross. And maybe it is gross, but don't judge it till you try
Basically, I thought I didn't like sardines, and then Tim was like all about them, so I tried them, and then I really liked them, and then I liked seaweed, and I
thought I didn't like seaweed. So.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah.
But yeah, Arches, it's a really unique landscape, but for some reason I feel like it's the white girl, the white girl national park.
Kind of true though. Everyone's like dressed so nice, and you're like, why are you dressed? You're sweating, like it's so hot.
Oh, and so that day we ran out of water.
Oh, I forgot. Oh my gosh!
So all day we're going on these hikes,
terrible.
and I have like the worst headache. I'm like,
we were. Oh, I forgot.
It's funny because we're only getting a mile or two away from the van, but we were out of water, and we didn't want to drive 20 minutes to the visitor center just to get more water. Anyway, we finally found a spot.
I remember the whole day we were like, and it's like pretty hot in Utah, like it was really hot, and so the whole hike we were like, we're almost there, let's just make it, and then like the whole hike back we're just like talking about water, but we still had to go to Canyonlands though and everything, so yeah, that was really funny. I forgot about that.
It's something about not having water just makes you like tired and grumpy and stuff. I don't know. So the rest of the day was kind of like but yeah, so from Utah's cool, but we went to Colorado, and we throughout the trip, we ended up being like a day or two ahead of schedule, like on everything that we went. We were like a day or two ahead of schedule. So we hadn't planned to go to Colorado early either. I think, though, my theory is Mary Beth and I are so used to taking 3-day weekends and jamming everything into a 3-day weekend that our pace is just like, go, get a hike done, keep moving, drive through the night. And we're not used to like, okay, we actually have a week to explore this one national park.
Yeah.
So we kept spending like 2 days at each place and then
and we're like, well, you ready?
Gotta go to the next place, So it ended up being like that. And because of that, we were a couple days ahead of schedule. And I should mention, we didn't even say this at the beginning, how we were able to do this. You quit your job.
Oh, we forgot about that. Oh, yeah. Basically, not for this, but I had like quit my job for other reasons, but we kind of knew like, oh, if I'm quitting my job, we should plan an in-between trip, like in between that. And so Tim's boss was also really nice and let him get off for like, basically a month.
Yeah, he said, I kind of talked to him and he was super gracious and said, I know this is important to you, so take the time you need, come back, and we'll get rolling when you get back. So that was nice. But anyway, what was I saying?
Colorado. So we were ahead of schedule and we ended up going ahead and just traveling to Colorado early and going actually to Aspen, Colorado due to, I think, that 14er.
Yeah, so I as long as I was going to be in Colorado a day or two early for hitting up with my family, I really wanted to snag a 14er or maybe two. So I kind of looked at my list of 14ers that I haven't done, and I haven't touched some of the elks. And so I wanted to hit a couple of those. Mary Beth wasn't really about me doing, like, what were you not about me doing? I can't remember. The Maroon Bells or something. She didn't want me doing. So I decided to do Castle and Conundrum, I think. And so, I did that next morning after we got there. Actually, funny story. You care if I tell this real quick?
No, I'm glad you're okay.
So Mary Beth's always worrying. Like, if I hike by myself or something, she's like, oh, Tim's going to die. But
no.
I haven't yet. But, the elks are, like, notorious for you can get into some sketchy situations easily, and there's a lot of loose rock and just kind of some crappy climbing and more dangerous than most of the other 14ers. So I got an early start, and my plan was just to get back fairly early in the morning. That we would have, like, a good amount of the day to, do other things, I guess. So I headed up there. I was, like, one of the first people up there, I'm pretty sure, because I was in the dark, and it was my headlamp. Well, at some point, the trail wasn't, like, super well marked, and I guess evidently I ended up, there was this point, it was kind of like a boulder field just above tree line, and it was this point where, I didn't see any cairns or anything, but I saw this trough going up to this ridge. As far as I could see, it was dark, and I thought, well, that makes logical sense, because the route that I was on was, like, called the Northeast Ridge or something, so I head up this little chute. It's basically like a rock slide chute, and I head up there for a good amount of time and end up gaining that ridge. But the farther I get, the more and more sketchy the moves are getting. And it's like, it feels even more sketchy because I'm by myself. So, I'm having to like calm myself down. There's not somebody else with me. It's a lot easier when you're with other people. But B, it being dark, like I would just like look over a rock. Ugh. And since my light can only shine like 20 feet, there might have been ground just 30 feet below me, but it just seems like there's just nothing. Like, it just seems like, oh my goodness, I can't see anything below me. So it's like even scarier when it's dark. So I did some scrambling up there on this ridge for quite a while. And I ended up having to do like, the sketchiest thing I had to do was like this. It probably was a class 5 descent. It was only like 15 feet. But it was like,
what?
Basically like rock climbing. It was probably like easy rock climbing. And it was only like 15 feet. So I get down there. And then at that point I was like, all right, this is dumb. I don't think I'm on the route. Didn't say this route was supposed to be this hard. It was supposed to be like class 2+ or something. So I just sat on my butt and waited for it to get light. And then sure enough, I just sat there for like 15 minutes and I saw a headlamp down below me on the opposite side of the bowl from me going up towards that ridge. And I was like, okay, so I screwed up. I went the wrong way. I checked my altimeter and I was actually already at 13,800 feet. So I was like, gosh, this kind of sucks to drop. I had to drop like another maybe 1,000 feet just to get down to the bottom of that bowl and cross. And looking back, after it got light, I was able to tell that I was actually super close to the summit of what was supposed to be the second mountain that I was going to hit. I think it goes Castle Conundrum. So I was super close to the summit of Conundrum. I should have just snagged it and done them in reverse order. But I ended up adding like 2.5 hours to my hike. But it was fun. I ended up catching the guy who had that headlamp, and his name was Johnny. And he actually just finished all the 14ers this year. But I know that because I follow him on Instagram. We shared some miles together, and he was a super nice guy. So,
well, let's just say I'm glad. I guess I was sleeping, but like that I didn't have to be scared. But that's the kind of stuff I'm always nervous about that would happen.
Yeah,
so it was kind of ironic.
It definitely wasn't that bad. It just felt worse because it was dark,
Yeah.
so I couldn't see below me.
But yeah, so do we want to talk about the town days a little bit?
Let's finish out the itinerary stuff.
I
so
think that's pretty much.
well, from then we met my family in Estes Park, and it was super nice to just be with them and have a change of pace.
Yeah.
You can share your thing from Aspen if you want.
Oh yeah. So I guess quickly back up a little bit, but yeah, pretty much after Tim got done with the 14er, we just like chilled and had like a more like chill town day. But then I think it was the next day.
It was that day.
Oh, it was that day. We were just like hanging out, and I was like, for some reason, once again, craving to play volleyball. And so I was like, oh, you know what we should do? Let's just like look up and see if there's a park nearby that has volleyball nets, and let's go and see if like someone's playing, and we'll just ask them like we did last time. So we like actually did end up finding this park with 2 volleyball nets. We drive there, and sure enough, there's like, it's really busy. There's like, you know, people playing on both nets and have a lot of fun. So yeah, we just pretty much walked up and watched them for a while, and then asked like, can we join you guys? And they were so nice. We ended up playing for like 2 hours and sand volleyball with this group. And yeah, I don't know, it was just special. And I think those are 2 highlights from my trip, just like that, really, I don't know, just connect with people in all states, even like when you don't know someone, just how special it can be and cool. So that was for sure a highlight. And we ended up meeting like people from all over, because a lot of them were like, I think somehow like interns working in Aspen or something.
I think they were all working for the city. So it's like, since it's a tourist town,
like a lot of
during
people,
the summer, people would go work for the city doing various things.
Yeah.
And it was basically a summer job for them. And they had like a pretty tight-knit community actually with everybody that worked for the city, which is cool.
But yeah, that was just like, man, it was just really fun highlights and made for like memorable trip. There's different things like that happening.
So yeah, then we finished off the trip in Estes Park with my family. My only regret there is I wish we would have had like maybe a day or two of just complete chill. That way we might have been more down to do some hikes with my family.
Well, I kind of forgot to mention, I got sick.
Oh yeah.
Which like, I guess maybe because, I don't know. But yeah, it was like the day before we actually went to his family. So I wasn't like, it was just like for one day that I was like pretty like sick. So I just like basically was in the car all day while Tim like played disc golf or did random things, and then we met his family. So I think that also like made for like a slower pace when we got there.
So by the time we met up with my family, we had done a lot of hiking. So I wish we would have taken another day or two just to chill. That way when we met up with them, we would have been down to do more hikes. But I was like hanging out with my family. I was all about just doing the mini golf and like taking a shower, eating food. I was like, I'm kind of hiked out. So we did some short hikes with them.
And we stayed at the YMCA in Rocky Mountain. Wait.
In Estes Park, right next to Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah, so that's really fun because they have like, you know, free mini golf. Well, you know, when you stay there, they have mini golf and all these activities you can do together. So that was for sure another highlight, was playing mini golf with his family, and yeah, going on like the small hikes we did go on with them.
And then we headed home.
Yeah, then from there we headed home. So it was for sure memorable, and yeah.
So those were some highlights and stuff, and we wanted to say, before we close the podcast down, we wanted to say like a few things about traveling on the road and how that looked, just some general, how it looked for us, and then also some tips for if you guys want to do something similar, some pro tips for how to do it cheap and efficiently. Mary Beth, what do you have? Well, we mentioned Planet Fitness.
Yeah, so basically we are all about trying to do stuff as cheap as possible, but still have like fun. So yeah, one way, if you want to like be able to take showers and stuff during van trips, is it's pretty simple. If you have like a Planet Fitness,
you have to get a black card, which is the
membership. Yes,
yeah,
black card membership, so that like you basically can use any Planet Fitness all over the world. I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like $20 a month. So if you know you're already going to be like working out a lot, it's worth it. So yeah, we already had that because, you know, we use Planet Fitness. So yeah.
Well, it's nice too because you can get a guest in for free.
Yes.
So Mary Beth had the black card, and then I would just get in for free with her.
Right. So that's basically how we stayed clean during the trip. So like a good tip for those who are wondering, like, yeah, how do you do that cheaply? You know, because it's actually crazy, but showers literally cost, like, we were looking, because one day, I think it was after our 3-day backpacking trip, but I wanted to take a shower so bad. But the closest Planet Fitness was like 3 hours away, and to pay for a shower in a gas station was like $7 or $10.
Yeah.
So definitely go Planet Fitness, because, you know, you pay $20 for the whole month, and then, you know, you can do as many showers as you want. So, so you want to talk about...
It's kind of funny. I would like work out while Mary Beth was showering, like waiting for her to get done, and then she'd like hand me the towel, and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go shower now.
Do you want to talk about the laundry? Like if they ever want to do...
Oh yeah, so we did do laundry one time.
Twice, actually. Or one time.
I think we did laundry once because, you know, we didn't bring that much for 3.5 weeks. And I think we did it at a pilot.
Yeah, so...
And it was pretty inexpensive,
just
actually. Another
good tip, like if you do a van trip and, you know, once again, you got to like figure out, okay, we're not in a hotel, so how do we wash our clothes or things? Yeah, you can actually go to Love's and Pilots and just like bigger gas stations, like trucking stops, and they have washing, drying machines. And I think those were only like pretty cheap.
It was
like
a couple bucks,
$2 I
$2 or $3,
think,
yeah,
per machine. So I think, yeah, we would do that, and then basically just like have a chill time of like resting, taking a nap, or reading a book in the van while we waited. So it was also a nice time to rest. But that's a good tip if you need to, do laundry.
So where did we sleep in this van? We have a bed, but where did we park it?
Oh yeah. So then we'll talk about tips on like where to park, where you don't have to pay. Do you want to share?
I mean, basically anywhere. So, Walmart, if you're not in a sketchy town, Walmart parking lots are really good.
Because, you know, there's a lot of people there. There's lights. So most of the time, I would say it's pretty safe as long as it's not like a really sketchy town. You want me to share another one?
Yeah.
Another one that we actually did a lot, which I preferred, was, and I don't actually know if this was...
It's fine.
Yeah, okay. So basically, we would just find pull-offs, like, in the national parks. And we actually saw a lot of vans doing this, but... You know, as you're driving through national parks, there's like a lot of, just pull-offs. I don't know what else.
Pull-offs on the side of the road.
Yeah, on the side of the road, basically. And yeah, we would basically, it was actually kind of like a thing throughout the trip. We'd be like, oh, that looks like a good pull-off. And like, like we'd be like, oh man, I wish we could like sleep here tonight. But we were obviously just traveling on to the next park.
Even like between national parks in the middle of the day, we'd be driving. It would be like, ooh, juicy spot to pull over and sleep, you know?
But yeah, those are makes it for some of the best like sleeping places, because they're, number one, like pretty, like usually really safe, because you know. And then secondly, it's nice to like be out in the quiet where you don't hear much traffic and it's dark too.
You should tell the story, though, of the night that we had to move like 4 times.
Okay. Yeah. I also like it because, like I said, it's quiet and dark in national parks. But sometimes, like we said, you don't have that luxury. If like you're traveling between national parks, you got to find a place to sleep. So
wait, was that even on this trip?
It was.
Okay.
Yes. So one day we were traveling. This is actually when we went. This is actually Olympic, where it was, you know, that lady told us it was kind of sketchy, and it ended up being sketchy. So because of that, we're like, well, we want to find a place that there'll be a lot of people watching, there'll be lights, and we won't be like in a secluded area. So, well, actually, no, sorry. So the first place we pulled over was a rest stop, and we're like, well, this is probably fine. I don't know why, but I felt so sketchy there, and I was like, no, we have to move. So Tim got in the car again, and we decided to move, and then we ended up pulling off at this huge, I think it was like a Pilot, a really big gas station, and we pulled in near where the truckers pull over and sleep. So we pulled our van in, and we started sleeping, but oh my goodness, I do not know why, but I could not fall asleep. Basically every second there was a new truck pulling in, so loud, and then I mean, you know, there's just lights everywhere, so it was so bright. So finally, I think it was 3 a.m. I finally was fed up, and I was like, I cannot sleep. I'm moving again. So I got in the driver's seat, and I ended up literally just putting in an address, just looking on Google, and I found this
State park or something.
No, it was a nice neighborhood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which that's another tip. So I ended up finding a nice neighborhood that looked pretty safe, and we just drove in there and pulled over. And actually, pretty good tip too. If you want it to be safe and you also don't want to pay money, just park between someone's house so that they think that you're parked at the other person's house, or that person thinks you're parked at the other person's house, if that makes sense.
Yeah, on the street, but between 2 houses.
Yeah, anyways. And then also it's probably fairly safe if it's a nice uppity neighborhood, you know. I think. Oh, we said like cheap food.
Oh yeah. So what did we eat on the trip? How many times do you think we ate out?
Actually, kind of.
Well, counting Domino's. So
oh yeah.
On this trip we were kind of all about Domino's because we had the app, and it's like if you order through, like, I'm not even kidding you. It's like
so cheap.
You would get like a large pizza for like,
it was like $7.99,
$7 or
with
something,
with 2 toppings. So
and it showed you how much it was originally. It was like $18 originally,
yeah.
and then if you order through the app, it was like $7, and you're like, how's that even possible?
So we actually did that. I think only twice, but
yeah.
Oh, that was nice. Like after a long hike, we would like get like barbecue chicken, Domino's, so good. But yeah, basically another like cheap tip if you want to do this cheaply is basically bring in like a lot of your own food. So we actually did that. We like packed in my little camping stove with pots and not like too many, but like a small little pan and utensils. And then we brought just like non-perishable food. We did have one little cooler, but
yeah, we borrowed Mom's Yeti cooler, which is super nice. And we just bought a bag of ice. What I would recommend doing, though, is actually take a milk jug before your trip, fill it up with water, and then put it in the freezer, because that would last you, a week probably. The bag of ice, since they're smaller cubes, it would last, a good 2 or 3 days, but then we'd have to go get another bag of ice.
Yeah, so probably freezing something would have been way smarter, but we didn't plan that. But yeah, so just cooking your own food is a lot cheaper and honestly probably healthier than eating out, and that can also make for a low budget trip. So I think those are all the tips we had for like cheaper budget, but yeah.
So I want to ask you, Mary Beth, were there any other takeaways about the trip? Anything you learned along the way?
I would say just being flexible on trips like this, because some of my favorite moments and memories was a lot of things we never planned. And so like I said, like the volleyball where we just randomly found people and asked if we could play, or like I mentioned, we actually didn't plan to go to half those national parks, but we decided spur of the moment, let's go there. So yeah, I just would say honestly, like having a flexible mindset and spontaneity.
Spontaneity, yeah.
Because it just always makes for memorable trip, and you never know what's gonna happen.
Okay. Anything else?
What else?
Maybe what would you say to someone who wants to do something similar?
Oh yeah. I would say literally do it.
Do it. Okay.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have the time, and it's kind of true, but also like I think personally that everyone should do something like this, because it's just it's the memories that will last a lifetime, not money that you make.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't because of like my job or this or that, but I'm telling you now that like this, I still think about this trip to this day. And I know we've only been married for 3 years, but so far it's been the most memorable trip I've ever taken. So just get out and do it, No excuses.
All right, that's cool. Anything else? Any other highlights or takeaways?
I don't think so, except for everyone needs to go to Washington North Cascades.
Absolutely. Okay, so one thing you could do that would help is leave a 5-star review and a written review on the podcast, particularly if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. It should take less than a minute for you to just say, hey, good podcast, and leave a 5-star review. Thanks, guys, for listening. And like Mary Beth said, if you have the opportunity, be sure to get out there and enjoy some sort of a long-form trip. It doesn't have to be in a van. It doesn't have to be 3.5 weeks. But just get out there and enjoy God's creation. I guess that's it for this one.
All right.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.